All right, so fresh off the stage, Apple just finished their press event. It is Thursday, October 27th. Now, they talked a lot about Apple TV and the new TV app coming to the Apple TV and the iPad. Now, I'm not going to talk about that so much in this video. Actually, I'm not going to talk about that at all in this video. I'm going to focus on this new MacBook Pro. That was the whole reason people really came to this event. Now, the MacBook Pro seems to be a nice device. I would actually like to get my hands on it and see more about it. Now, this thing is super thin. It's insane. It's actually a lot thinner. It's actually thinner than the MacBook Air. And what's crazy is it actually takes up less space than the MacBook Air. The 13-inch MacBook Air takes up more space than the 13-inch MacBook Pro that they just announced, which means I don't know what's going to happen to the MacBook Air. I think it's just going to go kaput. They actually just recently, today actually, just got rid of the 11-inch model, and all you can buy now is the 13-inch model, and it's $1,000. So I don't know what's going to happen with the MacBook Air. Now on stage, they talk more about the 15-inch model. They said it was 20% less volume than the previous one. It's 4 pounds. Now the 13-inch model is actually 3 pounds. Now it is a Force Touch trackpad. It is actually 2 times larger than the trackpad on the previous model, and the keyboard is that butterfly key mechanism that was introduced in the MacBook, the most recent MacBook. Now, a lot of people hate it. A lot of people are indifferent about it. Now they say this is the second generation of that. So we'll see how different it is and how more on board people will be. So the reason you came to this video really is to see about this touch bar. This touch bar here is OLED, aka OLED, and it is Retina. So it's a really high quality, high contrast strip that's touch sensitive. It actually changes with each application you have open. So on stage, they showed off a lot of different applications from Safari. So on Safari, you can actually look down and just click if you want to put in a new web address. You just click down there instead of, for moving around with the trackpad and going up there. It's just a lot of simple navigation buttons show up down there, and it actually gets rid of the function row on the models that have it. It actually gets rid of the function keys. So that was the whole reason for this was, supposedly to get rid of the function keys. So we'll see how easy and how nice it is to use once all these reviewers get their hands on it and once people get their hands on it. I want to see what people do with it, what people have to say about it and how it works. So yes, it is application specific, like I said before. So on stage, they showed off, Safari. They showed off Final Cut Pro. They showed off Photoshop. Now in Final Cut Pro, she actually zoomed into her timeline a lot and was able to jump to different aspects of the timeline with that little strip down there. And it seemed to be pretty cool. Of course, it is multi-touch, so all you have to do is just take your fingers and spread them apart to zoom in, and it actually was showing her zoom in on the screen. Now with Photoshop, she was able to change colors on the fly and to get into different tools that she said would take a little longer to get into if it weren't for the touch bar. But everything seemed to be really nice, and of course, you're able to manipulate photos and do different things in the Photos app on the computer. And it does have a fingerprint reader on the right. It is also a power button. Of course, it's Touch ID, and there's a T1 chip in the computer located on the left side of the computer where all of your Touch ID fingerprints and your Apple Pay stuff's going to be stored securely on that chip. Now, so with the Touch ID, it does have Apple Pay. So he was on Etsy and he showed off Apple Pay on Etsy. He just clicked Apple Pay, put his finger on the Touch ID, and then bam, was able to easily buy what he was looking for. And they actually were able to easily switch between profiles on the computer too, just by using the touch bar, just by using the fingerprint reader on the Touch ID. All he did was walk up on stage, put his finger on there, and then everything instantly switched over to his profile. It was really crazy. And of course, that is the power button too, so you can use it as a power button as well. Now, when you're writing and talking to people on messages or on email, emojis will show up if you want them to. Predictive text will show up if you want them to. You can actually bring up the function row. So if you hit the function key on the keyboard, it actually will bring up the F1, F2, and things like that. So you can bring that back on there. It does have quick access to volume up, volume down. The escape key shows up on different applications. You can reply to emails super quick. You can move to different dates. It's pretty crazy, all the stuff that you can do on there. Now the thing is that will it be useful? I don't know. I can't say at the moment, but it'll be interesting to see what people do with this and what developers do with this. Like what in Premiere can you do with this? I had it with Premiere, not Final Cut, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with this touch bar using Adobe Premiere. And the touch bar is customizable too. All you have to do is take your hand on the trackpad, go up to whichever aspect on the screen that you would like down on the touch bar, just drag and drop it. It's pretty seamless. You just take your finger, you drag all the way, just continue to drag down, and it will actually show up on the touch bar. You can place it anywhere you want. want. Now, a lot of people have been talking about the touch bar, saying, Apple, why don't you just release a touchscreen computer? Like, why are you doing this touch bar stuff? Just release a touchscreen computer. And it's probably on the way. I feel like this is Apple's way of giving people like a halfway mark as far as having a touchscreen computer and having this, because it will take a lot to recode and redo this and that for macOS, because macOS is not ready for touch sensitiveness. It's not Windows 10. Windows 10 is ready for touch. macOS is nowhere near ready for touch. And who even knows if they even want to make it ready for touch? Their moneymaker really is the iPhone, so I don't even know. They may make a touchscreen version of these computers later down the line once macOS is ready, but I really doubt that they'll even make a touchscreen model unless demand is super high for it. Now, the speakers they're claiming to be a lot more powerful, 2 times the dynamic range. You're in a different area and they allow for more airflow down there to make everything sound really nice. There's also a new thermal architecture too as well. You can bring in air from the sides, push it out from the back. It's really nice. They say it's really quiet and stuff like that. So beyond all this stuff here, you can look at some of my screenshots that I've taken from the event and read more about them if you would like. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the specs from this thing. I'm not going to go into detail because there's so many different ways you can configure the specs for this, but I'm just going to give you the bare minimum and the price for that bare minimum, and then you go on their website and figure out how you would like to configure your MacBook Pro. Now, the 13-inch MacBook Pro comes in 3 versions standard. The first base version does not come with a touch bar, so it actually has the function row at the top. It is $1,500, and it has a 2 gigahertz dual core Intel Core i5 processor. Your SSD is PCIe based. There's 256 gigs on board, and you can configure more. You can configure a better processor and more memory for that. It does have standard 8 gigs of RAM, and you can configure it up to 16. Now, your graphics is Intel's Iris graphics. It is the 540. Now, as far as ports goes, there's 3 ports on this computer. You have the third one I'll talk about in a little bit, but the first 2 I want to talk about is this Thunderbolt 3 port. It is USB-C ready, so you can plug in any USB-C into it and it works just fine. So they showed off on stage some of the stuff that will work with this Thunderbolt 3 port, because they know people are going to be in an uprage because it only has Thunderbolt ports on it, but whatever. You can charge from any of the ports though, so that's one of the coolest things about it. Now, the other models do come with the touch bar. The 13-inch model you can buy with the touch bar. Its starting price is $1,800, and there's another one for $2,000. Now, the $1,800 one comes with a better processor. It's a 2.9 gigahertz dual core i5 processor with turbo boost up to 3.3 gigahertz, and it is PCIe based flash storage as well as SSD, 256, and the $2,000 one actually comes with 512 gigs, and 8 gigs of RAM is on board, configurable to 16 gigs of RAM. Now, your graphics is also different with this too. It does have Intel Iris 550 graphics, and you have more ports. You do have that headphone jack, and you do have the USB-C port on there as well. Now, here's the thing. I want to talk a little bit about this. I just want to say this. The fact that this computer has a headphone jack is cool, but I think it's a little weird that Apple is trying to, supposedly get rid of this headphone jack. It's old tech. Let's use Lightning for headphones. But this computer doesn't have a Lightning connector to it. So if I want to use my headphones that came with my iPhone, which I would never, but hypothetically speaking, if I wanted to use my headphones that came with my iPhone on this computer, then I'm going to initially have to buy another dongle. Or if I actually had an iPhone and bought better headphones with a Lightning connector, I would have to maybe get a dongle for that too, or maybe those headphones came with different ways to plug them in. But I think that's a little weird that you do have your headphone jack on this and no way to plug in natively plug in any Lightning connector headphones. It's just beyond weird to me. I don't know what's going on at Apple, but the 15-inch model only comes with a touch bar. There is no base model with no touch bar. Now, there's 2 versions of this. It is $2,400 standard, and the other version is $2,800. The $2,400 version comes with a 2.6 gigahertz quad-core Intel Core i7 processor. It does have turbo boost up to 3.5 gigahertz, and the $2,800 model is a 2.7 gigahertz Intel Core i7 processor. It's quad-core, and both of these models can be configured to a 2.9 gigahertz quad-core Intel Core i7. Now, its turbo boost is up to 3.8 gigahertz. But now the base model for this, which is $2,400, it does come with that standard 256 gigs of storage, and the $2,800 one does come with 512 gigs of storage. Now, the RAM here is interesting. According to this website, there's only 16 gigs of RAM and that's it. I don't think there's any way to configure anything more than that. Now, the graphics on the 15-inch models, that's where things begin to change from the 13-inch models. You do have discrete graphics. You have your Radeon Pro 450 for the base 15-inch model. It does have 2 gigs of GDDR5 memory, and you do have your Intel HD graphics. It is Intel HD 530. The higher end 15-inch model, which costs $2,800, I'm trying to keep everything ready and not confusing for you guys. Now your higher end model does have your Radeon Pro 455, and it is 2 gigs of GDDR5 memory, and you do have that Intel HD graphics. It's the same graphics as 530. Now, both of these models can actually be configured up to the Radeon Pro 460 with 4 gigs of GDDR5 memory. So there's that for you. Now, there are 4 Thunderbolt 3 USB ports on this, so it's just like the higher end 13-inch model with the touch bar. It does have your 4 ports on here, and that's all that you have, and the headphone jack, obviously. And that's basically it. That's like the overview of it. Please dig deeper if you're really interested in these devices to see what else you can find, to see how much money you're going to spend, or if you're going to spend money at all on it. So please hit up apple.com, go to Engadget, go to The Verge, go to any of your favorite tech websites if you want to go there and find out more information, or just hit me up on Twitter or in the comment section. I'll answer any questions. I'll do a lot of research for you guys and answer any questions. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you maybe tomorrow. I don't know, maybe tomorrow or Saturday for a Focus ST video. Peace.